Can you believe I'm here already? Like it's been, what, 3 days? 4 days? I mean, don't get used to it because it might not happen again for another month. But we're making progress. I'm here twice in a week. So this is my April wrap up, everything I read in April, which by the time this comes out will be 12 books. Don't get too excited. A lot of them are children's books, which not that it doesn't matter, it just means that I got through them quicker. So I got through 12 rather than my usual like 6 or 7. Most of the books that I read were ebooks. I only read 2 physical books this month. I spend a lot of time on my online library and I really used it to its full advantage this month. So we're just going to go through the books that I read, what I thought of them. If I can remember the star rating I gave them, I will also tell you that, but I've probably forgotten. Here we go. The first book I read was All Systems Red by Martha Wells, which is the first in the Murderbot series. I read this kind of like at night as I was going to bed. I had it on Kindle. I had like a £5 Amazon voucher, and I don't usually spend more than 99p on a Kindle book. However, because I had the £5 voucher, it didn't cost me anything. I bought it for like £2.60, something like that. But I was reading it at night, and I was reading it maybe 5-10 pages a night before I fell asleep, like literally fell asleep with the Kindle in my hand and my Kindle would fall, and then I would have to hope it didn't turn the page when it fell on the floor. So I don't think I really enjoyed it as well as I could have done if I'd have read it in the daytime while I was more awake. If you don't know, probably should have said this a little bit earlier. All Systems Red is the first book in the Murderbot series. It's about a robot AI who is like a security for humans, but he hates humans. Or they hate humans. Not sure the gender because it's a robot, might not have a gender. I will continue with the series. I might reread the first one again before I start the next one. I don't think I would actually buy the book physically because they're really expensive for how small they are. But if I find them in a charity shop or a second-hand shop or on sale, then I will pick them up because, you know, it'd be nice to have them. The next book that I finished, even though I started it in March, was Dead House Gates, the second book in the Malazan series. If you don't know what it is, it's an epic fantasy where you don't really know what's going on and you just got to observe and hope that it all comes together in the end of the 10-book series and you'll go, oh, that's what's going on with it. I really struggled with this. A lot of people said that the first half was quite a struggle and then it kind of picked up from there. I found the first half quite interesting and then I kind of got to the point where I was like, I just want it to finish now. I'm not interested anymore. When's it going to be over? There were certain characters in it whose names I can't remember. You will know if you watch my videos that names are something I'm not very good at. So there are some characters that I was enjoying following, but then the rest of the characters I wasn't interested in, and therefore those sections would just be a slog to get through. I have now started Memories of Ice, even though I said I wasn't going to start it until tomorrow, but I had an urge to read it and so I picked it up. I'm hoping it's better than this. I'm not saying it's a bad book, I'm just saying I struggled. And I think that's kind of the aspect of the whole of Malazan, is that you will struggle until a point where things will just click into place, but I don't know when that's going to happen. The next book that I read, I actually listened to, was My Name Is Bridget by Alison O'Reilly. It's a non-fiction about the mother and baby homes in Tuam in Ireland and the mass grave they found in an old septic tank underneath the foundations of where the school used to be. It's a horrible, horrible story that you can't believe is true. It's something that I heard about for the first time on a podcast I listened to, and it was really hard to listen to, obviously, with the stories of Alison writes a story of a woman who finds out she has 2 brothers that she didn't know she had. They were both born in the mother and baby home, and I think She knows that one of them's died, but she doesn't know if the other one died. And she's trying to find out where her brothers are, whether they're buried, whether they were adopted out. And then there's stories from other people, either people that were women who went there to have the babies, or people who were family members of women who went there to have the babies, and trying to get the Irish government and more the Catholic Church to take responsibility for this mass grave of babies and children. And the epilogue is just the list of names of over 700 children who are in this mass grave. And I made myself listen to the whole thing because I think it's important that we do recognise each individual child that is there. But I mean, 700 names is just, it's a lot to listen to when you put these names to these, you know, nameless bodies that are in the septic tank. It makes it more real, and it was something that I made myself listen to because it was important to hear the names, and it was important to recognise each individual child that was left in that septic tank with no burial, you know, no funeral. If you're interested in that kind of, you know, what the Catholic Church cover up, the politics in Ireland, it's well worth a read. After reading Deadhouse Gates, I thought I should have a little break, so I picked up The Long Walk, which I have in this collection of the Batman books by Stephen King. I actually bought this for Rage, like only for Rage, but I haven't even read it yet. And then I've heard a lot about The Long Walk recently, so I read that. That's a sick book, isn't it? You know, let's let all these boys walk an ultramarathon until there's one left, and then they win. And they win the ultimate prize. It's not worth it, is it really? You know, is it 100 boys? 100 boys start the walk and one of them is left because they're all going to get shot along the way. Even if they fall and die, they're still going to shoot them just to make sure they are dead. Yeah, it was a good Stephen King book. I actually really enjoyed it, but I don't like saying I enjoyed it because obviously it wasn't very nice. However, I will be reading the rest of these books across the year. Like I said, I bought it for Rage, so I think I'm going to read Rage next. We also have Roadwork and The Running Man, so I'll just fit these in at some point across the year because they're quite short. So next month, Andy Weir comes out with Project Hail Mary. I really enjoyed The Martian, like most people, and then most people said that Artemis wasn't very good, so I bought it but never read it. But because Project Hail Mary was coming out, I thought, well, I better read it, just because I don't want to skip one of his books if I've already got it. And it was good. It wasn't breathtaking. I didn't fall in love like I did with The Martian. I wasn't really a big fan of the main character. She was quite annoying. However, I did enjoy the story and the idea of living on the moon. And yeah, it was okay. I think I read it in about 2 days. It's quite a short story. Oh, I mean, after Deadhouse Gates, everything's a short story, isn't it? I'm glad I read it. I wouldn't rush to read it again. I don't think I would read it again. And yeah, I mean, it was okay. It was good. It was a solid 3-star, you know. Nothing mind-blowing, nothing terrible. Let's just hope that Project Hail Mary is more like The Martian than this, because I need another book that's like The Martian from Andy Weir. One thing I didn't like about it, actually, when I think about it now, is that the main character in The Martian was quite funny and it worked. The humour with this character didn't work. I think that was the main issue I had with this. She should have been less relatable. I think that's what he was trying to do, and it just didn't work. The next book I read, you would think that I'd read it before, but I hadn't. I mean, you wouldn't think I'd read it before because you don't know about this, if you can see him. But I hadn't read The Iron Man by Ted Hughes. I'd watched the film, obviously. It's one of my all-time favourite films, obviously. But the book I hadn't ever picked up before. So I saw it on my library account and just said, okay, well, I'll read that. It's very short. I think I read it in like an hour. It's such a lovely book. Obviously it has differences to the film. The film is more amped up. It was a lot more like action and stakes to the Iron Giant getting away and being safe, whereas this is more just a small little village trying to contain this Iron Man, who turns out to be quite a nice robot alien thing. But it was still really nice. It was still a nice story, and it was quite heartwarming. I wish I'd have read it when I was younger. I think I would have loved it when I was younger. I might see if there's an illustrated edition out there and buy it, because it would be nice to have. And now I can say I've read the book and I've watched the film, which I should have done anyway before getting my tattoo, I suppose. I've been listening to audiobooks while I'm working. Well, I had been listening to audiobooks while I was working, and then I decided I couldn't do that anymore, so I switched to just watching YouTube all day. So the next book that I listened to was The Prison Doctor by Dr. Amanda Brown. It's very obvious what it's about. It's about a woman who works in prisons in the UK and what she sees as a prison doctor. It wasn't as bad as I expected, really. I think she must have muted it a little bit, because I've read other things by other either prisoners or prison officers that have been far worse than this. She's worked in several men's prison, she worked in a youth prison, a men's prison, and then a women's prison. And it was interesting. I like stuff about prison systems and about the prisoners. And I think I've listened to it in one day, because it was less than 6 hours long once I sped it up to 1.5, which is what I usually do. I find that easier to listen to non-fiction than I do fiction, mainly because it's just like listening to a podcast. I can listen to a podcast quite easily while I'm working. I find with fiction, I miss too much because you've got to keep up with the story, whereas with non-fiction, you can kind of pick up on things that they've already, because non-fiction, they tend to repeat things a lot, don't they? You know, so I find it easier to listen to non-fiction as an audiobook. So that's what I started doing. But like I said, now my brain has gone, no, we're not doing that anymore. I don't want to listen to any more books while you're working, because we won't take anything in, etc, etc. The final books that I read were the Chronicles of Narnia, like I mentioned in my last video. I managed to finish, well, by the time this comes out, I'll have managed to finish doing it again. I forgot what they are. The Magician's Nephew, The Lion, the Witch and the Wardrobe, The Horse and His Boy, Prince Caspian, and Voyage of the Dawn Treader. I did want to finish the whole series. I think I'm just fed up with it. I'm not really enjoying it, to be honest. I think I'm just too old. I think that's what it is. I am not the target audience for the Chronicles of Narnia, and I'm just not having any fun with it. I don't know what it is about it. Like I said in my last video, I really didn't like The Horse and His Boy. There was too much monologuing from characters and not enough description, not enough where the characters were going, and I just got really I was skipping. In the end, I was just skipping the talking because I was so fed up of listening to them go on and on and on. Especially, is it Shasta? She really annoyed me. I also didn't really enjoy Voyage of the Dawn Treader. At the time of filming this, I think I've got 4 chapters left. And even though, I mean, most people know what it is, so it's not a spoiler. So even though Eustace turns into this nice little boy, he's still a bit of a knob, isn't he? I really don't like him, and because it's quite centred around him, I'm just not interested in it. So I will finish the series at some point this year. I'm not going to leave it longer than this year, but it won't be right now. I'm going to return. I've got the 7-book collection in one from the library. I'm going to return that after Voyage of the Dawn Treader's finished, and yeah, I'll get them at some point, but I'm not in a rush. I'm only finishing them because I'm nearly done. You know, if they were longer than 200 pages each, I wouldn't bother finishing them. I'm quite upset, really, because the original BBC adaptation of Lion, the Witch and the Wardrobe was one of my favourite films as a kid. So I enjoyed The Lion, the Witch and the Wardrobe. The Magician's Nephew was so much the Garden of Eden and the creation of the world that I couldn't see past it. And I think if I'd have read it when I was like 8, when I should have read it, it would have been a lot nicer. But all I could see was the allegory of the creation of Earth from God, and God coming and creating all the animals, and I was just rolling my eyes the whole time. I'm a massive fan of his Dark Materials, and that is kind of the antithesis of the Chronicles of Narnia, but in not such an obvious way. Narnia was so obvious that it was laughable, and I just couldn't enjoy it as an adult. I should have read it 30 years ago, but I didn't. So yeah, that is my whole list of what I read in April. I didn't enjoy... I was going to say the majority. It wasn't the majority. Most of the books were okay. Just okay. What did I love? I'm looking at my list, and I don't think I loved any of them. I loved The Iron Man. A 60-page book. I loved that one. I enjoyed The Long Walk. I think that's probably, out of the adult books, that was the one I enjoyed the most this month. I'm hoping next month's a lot more successful with me doing the Asian Readathon, because I'm having to stop myself from starting them now. I hope you enjoyed this video. I hope it wasn't too rambly. I feel like I've rambled. And if you enjoy watching this, because I've had a lot more viewers on my last video than I have on any of them really, and I know that's not a lot because you can see my numbers and it's not a lot, but it's been nice to know that people have been watching. Give it a like, subscribe if you want to. I do have a planned schedule for the next 3 weeks of videos that are going to come out. How that goes, we will know in the future, but I am planning on posting a lot more and more consistently on definite days. Let me know what you read in April. Let me know if you read any of these, if you enjoyed any, if you've got any recommendations from what I have read, and I will see you next time. Bye.